Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden, and we are coming to you guys a day late this week. We apologize, but as good, if not better than ever. I am in an undisclosed location in a bunker somewhere, and I am currently battling a plague of some kind. That's why we delayed the show by a day, but I'm getting better, and Logan, there's nothing better when it comes to healing my mind, body, and soul than seeing you and getting to talk about some basketball, because it's been a week since we've talked NBA on a full show. That's way too long, and one of the big stories that has developed in that time, I see you fiending over there, is the Ja Morant situation in Memphis, where he quit on the team mid-game. There's just no other way to put it, and then was asked about the situation afterwards and said, ask the coaches, and then he was suspended a game because of conduct detrimental to the team, and that situation has just continued to develop, and things haven't really gotten better in terms of vibes, but that was obviously the big boiling point here. So, Logan, just how cooked are the Grizzlies and Ja right now?
I think they're pretty cooked, but I do have some good news for Memphis. And the good news is they nailed the Desmond Bane trade. I think that is the silver lining to all this. The fact that they got Cedric Coward out of the deal. They still have a 29 first-round pick swap. They still have an unprotected first in 2030. And they got KCP. So we can start off positively. I think Memphis crushed that trade. The bad news is I do think that Ja Morant in Memphis, this has run its course. And the worst news is that I kind of feel like Ja is immovable, Carson. Like, I don't know how you feel, man. I just don't know how hot the trade market or how interested many NBA teams would be in Ja's services. This year, Ja's giving you 20 points per game. That is his lowest of his career since his sophomore season. He's doing that on 37.9% from the field, under 13% from deep, and under 49% true shooting. Those are all career lows for Ja. Right now, this is on the scale of the entire NBA. He is giving you the second least efficient 20 points per game since 2010. He is giving you the 12th least efficient 20 points per game since 2000. And a lot of the things about Ja that make him a frustrating NBA player is the very rigid style of play that he employs with your basketball team, that he is so heliocentric, he is very ball dominant, and he has extremely limited off-ball value. He's just an 11% catch and shooter. You head into the fact, Carson, that this is a guy that has not been an all-star since 2023. He has played in just 38% of Memphis's games over the last 3 seasons. And then you look at his contract, and he's making $42 million in 2027 and $45 million in 2028. I think this is a toxic relationship, Carson. I don't think Ja has a very good relationship with this new coaching staff. I think that the Taylor Jenkins firing may have been just a breaking point for Ja and what could have been here in Memphis. But that's kind of my problem here, man, is I just, he seems unhappy and unmotivated. And I think it is in the interest of both parties to move on. I just don't know who would really be interested in giving you all that much back for a guy like Ja Morant. That is the consistent issue and problem I keep running into when I think about the Grizzlies and their current situation.
I agree with you there. I think that Ja's value is deteriorating rapidly and has been on a steady downward slope over the last couple years, and I have not felt good about Memphis' situation for a while. I think big picture, they've been cooked for a while. It's been over when you talk about them contending with a group built around Ja and Triple J. But it's never been more over than it is right now. And this isn't just about how horribly Ja is playing at this moment, and he is playing really bad basketball, but we understand that some of this stuff is going to bounce back. His shooting is a problem. He's not going to shoot 13% from deep this entire season. But big picture, he is just not playing at a good enough level for them to be the team that they want to be. And on top of that, he is causing all of these major locker room issues, discord within the franchise. And this has been going on for a while now. Ja has had some criticisms in the past that have been kind of silly. Like, yeah, you shouldn't flash a gun on Instagram Live, but also maybe that was overplayed, overreacted to by the league office with a 25-game suspension, whatever. He shouldn't do that. But that to me is not as significant as the stuff that we've seen over the last 9 months, where last season Memphis realized we aren't good enough. We have to try to make changes. And their path to doing that was saying our half-court offenses, when we run this super pick-and-roll, jaw-heavy attack, have always been mediocre to bad. And that's always come back to bite us in the playoffs. So they totally reinvent their offensive system. They become much more predicated upon running very low volume pick and roll, pushing pace, trying to create cross matches in transition, and overall just saying whoever has a matchup that they like, go ahead, attack, empowering everybody to be aggressive in that spot. Lots of drive and kick, and that led to the best half-court offense that they have had in the Ja Morant era. And I'm not saying that it was perfect. I'm not saying it was the solution that was going to make them contenders. That didn't exist. The reality is the Grizzlies have never been good enough to be that team. Their talent isn't good enough, but Ja looked at that system that had led to their best team results in the half court offensively, and he said, this doesn't work for me. My production is down. This is a bad fit for me individually. He's a bad off-ball player. He is somebody who is very reliant on playing out of pick and roll himself. And so they forced this change in the system that I absolutely believe was fueled by Ja, and they had certain issues with their system and like high leverage matchups against really good teams. But overall, again, it was leading to the best half-court offensive results they'd seen. Ja forces their hand to change that.
Well, I mean,
they
Carson,
become a disaster down the stretch.
I mean, just to add on to that, last season they were the number 6 best half-court offense in the NBA, and like you mentioned, it featured the least amount of Ja. This season, they're the 5th worst half-court offense in the league. And for last season and this season, it's true for both years, the offense has statistically been better without Ja Morant on the court.
Yeah, which is very damning when your entire value is supposedly, I am this ball-dominant offensive engine, and yet he's never been able to lead to good half-court offenses when they take that approach of letting him dictate with the ball in his hands for a vast majority of the game. And last year, come March, they made that change. They went back to being a more jaw-heavy pick-and-roll attack. It was a pretty dramatic midseason change, and they were 11-17 down the stretch. And in that crumbling phase, they fire Taylor Jenkins, and they go to Izalo. And since he took over, he's 8-15 as head coach. And so, again, it's not that this is the difference between the Grizzlies being a great team and the Grizzlies being what they are right now. But when you already have these talent limitations, and then on top of that, you have your quote-unquote stars sabotaging your ability to play your best style, and then going beyond that and saying, talk to the coaching staff. He's not even talking with Izalo right now if you're watching the games, like saying that he's not having fun out there. All these things are just making a tough situation worse and worse. And then you have the fact on top of that that Ja hasn't been playing like a top 30 guy in the NBA for a couple years now, and I think he's legitimately regressed. What we're seeing right now is exceptionally bad, but it's not just like some of this outlier really bad shot making, although the fact that he is a poor shot maker from the perimeter is obviously very significant when it comes to Ja's limitations as a player. But as significant, his rim rate has dropped by so much, dude. In 2022, when you have peak Ja, he was making 5.3 shots per game in the restricted area. I mean, he was one of the great rim pressuring, rim finishing guards that we've seen in a while in this league. This year, he's making 2.1, 40% of where that was at when Ja was at his best. And that's been a continual downward trend for him. And then all the while, the shot making, which was already a problem, is just getting worse. He's 48% on twos. He's under 13% from three. Even his turnovers have gone up. He's at almost 4 turnovers a game, and that was a problem last year as well. Like, with all of those significant issues that he has, he is just not good enough to justify adapting your entire offensive system to him when he is this rigid player, when he is bad off ball, when he is inefficient as a scorer, and when he does have these major issues as a shot maker that ultimately make him a little bit easier to scheme for in a playoff situation when you know, like, you can go under screens and this guy can't punish you for that. And then on top of that, he's throwing this whole fit. I just think the Grizzlies have built everything around 2 deeply flawed building blocks. And I say that about both Ja and Triple J. I think they both have major flaws as stars, but especially with Ja, because I think he is not as good as Triple J. I think especially when it comes to a trade market, because he is so much more rigid stylistically, like Triple J has his issues when it comes to holding up as like a number one scorer in a playoff run. He also, even though he's a little quirky for sure, does a lot of things that any team wants, right? When it comes to a mismatch attacking big, a guy who's switchable defensively, protects the rim like he does, can space the floor reasonably well. He's inconsistent there, but he is a good shooting big in the big picture. Like, all those things are valuable league-wide. Ja being this version of the ball-dominant guy who wants to dictate your entire offense but isn't good enough at it, and then also has major availability and major leadership issues, like, it's just definitely not going to work in Memphis, for sure. And I completely agree with you that the market is going to be pretty dry for him, but we are, like, past the point of no return here. They have tried to hit the reset around these two guys in every way. They made a coaching change. They made a system change, and then they changed the system back. They've tried to reload with draft picks and say, okay, we're pivoting off of Bane, even though he's our third best player, because big picture, we just think we need to do something that'll increase our ceiling. They've done all this stuff, and you're 9 games into the season, and it feels like all hope is lost and everything is falling apart, or I guess just continuing to fall apart, because that was already happening last year. So to me, that's when you have to hit the nuclear button. I'm not saying that about Triple J. Like I said, I think they'd get a much better return for him, but I also, even though he has his flaws, believe in him more as a talent. With Ja, it's got to be over, but where do you go with him, Logan?
I don't know. I don't know who's interested in him. Like we've discussed, like I think his value is at an all-time low. Like you mentioned, I think he is, because we've talked about guys that come available often on this show, right? Like a couple of years ago, the hot guy that was on the market tearing it up, Lauri Markkanen. Markkanen has a skill set that is so easily malleable to so many different NBA teams, and he has such a valuable skill set where he's this elite off-ball scorer who, you know, is going to get all of his points from moving off the ball and finding open space and just working within a system. And one, Ja doesn't have the skill set for that, but what makes him even more frustrating to me, Carson, is his mentality and the way he approaches the game. Like, last year, I think, is the best example of that, where his team is having the most success you've had from a Grizzlies squad in a long time. The offense is good. They are winning basketball games, and then Ja's frustrated because he's not getting his numbers. Like, it just speaks to the fact to me that Ja is not a winner in terms of the skill set that he provides, but also the mentality that he brings to the game. I view Ja Morant not only as a guy that I don't want on my team, Carson, I kind of view him as toxic and cancerous at this point. Like,
yeah.
I would not want this guy anywhere near my locker room, anywhere near my basketball team, the vibes that he's bringing along with the skill set. Like, ironically, tell me if you think I'm crazy with this, I think he is probably now one of the like least movable contracts, like least desirable guys in the league. Like, I don't know, because I've seen so many different trade suggestions from like people in the media. One, there seems to be a pretty large gap right now between people who are really tuned into the NBA and people who casually watch it, because there is a large subsection of analysts that still consider Ja to be like a star. Like, again, and then two, like, they're just more optimistic than me of Ja working somewhere else in a different basketball system. Like we've said, I just think you have to tailor your offense around him, and he's just not that good. You have to attribute a large amount of your salary cap to getting this guy. I don't think he's going to get traded. Like, the most, if I had to make a prediction for Memphis, I think that they probably just have to bleed out this contract, Carson, or they have to attach a pick to get rid of Ja. Like, I just don't know any team that Ja would legitimately help. Like, send him to Brooklyn? I don't know, man.
There's only one serious basketball situation that I look at and I think I like the basketball fit, and that would be Minnesota, just because I think point guard is such a desperate position of need for them, and I actually think having that level of a downhill paint guard alongside, and I mean, they would obviously have to figure out the fit, but the talent upgrade would be so significant. Putting that kind of like elite playmaker, because that's what Ja is. I mean, Ja's greatest asset is absolutely his passing, his ability to generate paint touches, although, again, he's doing less of that now than he was at his best. But when I think about that, I'm like, if I'm Minnesota and I know what I have in Anthony Edwards, I don't want to invest that much of my future and his future, therefore, in Ja Morant. I don't want to be that tied up and possibly tied down to this guy who does feel like a sinking ship, who as a basketball player has been regressing, who as a personality and a leader has not realized the same problematic things he's doing and has done nothing to try to become better in that way. Like, you're 26 years old now, Ja, and you are just continuing to trend downwards in every way that matters. So I think I'm just out on him. Like, if I am running any team around the league where my goal is to go win a title, if I am the Nets and my current point guard situation is Yegor Demon and Ben Saraff and Nolan Traore, who are shooting a combined 29% from the field, by the way, which is hilarious, and I'm just like, fuck it, I have the cap. I need to sell tickets before everybody abandons us, the 12 fans that we do have. Like, that's one thing. If your goal is to be a serious contender, I don't want all of the risk that comes with Ja Morant, because we're talking about basketball. We're talking about personality stuff. How about the fact that this dude has also been such a major availability concern in recent years? Like, and he's this downhill guard who's already losing his downhill potency. That is something that only gets worse with age. It's a dire situation. It is. So I don't know if, like you're saying, their hands are tied to the point where they literally can't trade him, but I would be looking to do so at every possible turn because it's just not going to work out with him in Memphis. The good news for Grizzlies fan, Logan, you mentioned this at the top, they have Cedric Coward. Cedric Coward is fantastic. We both loved him as a prospect, but my God, 15, 6, and 3, 64% on twos, 44% on threes, efficiency GOAT, versatility GOAT, two-way GOAT, incredible, just do-it-all wing in today's NBA. So that's your building block. Forget about the other guys. They're all fake. It's all about Cedric Coward, baby. That being said, Logan, as bad as things have been for Ja in the Grizzlies, we have seen some incredible basketball elsewhere in the NBA this season, and specifically with the top 5 guys this year. Do you think this is the best top 5 players in NBA history that we're witnessing right now, Logan?
I do. And the reason I believe that is I think there's 2 ways to look at this. You could look at it is, are these 5 guys that much more talented than the rest of the elite players? I don't look at it like that. I looked at it more of, I just don't know if we've ever seen guys as good as these guys are, like, and how unique their skill sets are. Like Wemby, for one. Wemby is a one of one that we have quite literally just never seen before. This kind of combination of two-way ability where he's this good defensively and that unstoppable offensively. I look at another top 5 guy in Jokic, and I just don't think we've ever had a player quite like Jokic before at this size with this kind of shooting touch and this kind of playmaking vision. A Luka Doncic, who is so elite at seeing the entire floor and making all of these passes and being able to hit a shot from anywhere on the floor. Like, when I think about the uniqueness of all of these guys' skill sets, Giannis, and how he is arguably the most physical, most dominant player ever, him and Shaq, right? Like, it's rarefied air. I just think that, it's pretty simple. Like, I just think they are more talented than any group of 5 guys that have ever been in the league at the same time. I think that we've never seen this kind of skill sets at the top of the league. And more importantly, not only do I think it's the top 5 most talented, I definitely think it's the deepest the league has ever been as well, man. And I think it's only going to continue. I think it's a trend that's just going to keep getting better and better as we go along with the modern NBA. So, I didn't think about this one too hard, man. I think it's pretty clear. I think it is.
Yeah, in terms of the raw talent, I don't even think it's a question. But I don't like answering questions like this, like that, just because I think that's kind of always the case. We talk about this all the time, but basketball talent is constantly getting crazier. The athletes are getting freakier. The skill is getting better. And that applies all the way from the top with the superstars to the role players, honestly, especially in today's league. But when I think about the top 5s who stood out most relative to their peers, and we're just talking about the highest peaks that we've seen in the history of this game, there's 5 different periods and years that immediately jump out to me in terms of having those super loaded top 5s. First one, 1962, Logan, one of the greatest MVP races ever, but you've got Oscar, Jerry West, Elgin, Wilt, Bill Russell, all playing at an extremely high level. 1988, you've got Jordan, Magic, Bird, Barkley, Akeem. 2003, you've got Shaq, Duncan, Kobe, KG, Dirk. 2017, you've got Bron, Steph, KD, Kawhi, and then I'd probably go Harden for the fifth spot, but AD is also right there that year. So those are the groups that I think we're starting to put this year's top 5 into conversations with. I think this group has the potential to be the best. I couldn't say they are yet. Right now, I think I would go with that 88 group just because it's like Jordan, Magic, Bird, those guys were all at top 12 peaks of all time. This was the best version of Barkley, in my opinion. Akeem wasn't the offensive player that he would become, but was still the best defender or damn near of the modern era and a really good offensive player. So I think that's the 5 I would take. But when you just think about what this group is doing right now, like Logan, you look at the numbers, man. Here are all of their averages this season, okay? Jokic is averaging 24, 13, and 12 with 3 stocks a game on 72% true shooting. He's leading the NBA in rebounds per game and assists per game. Giannis is averaging 33, 13, and 7 with a steal and a block a game on 67% true shooting. Shai is averaging 33, 5, and 6 on 64% true shooting. Luka is averaging 40, 11, and 9 on 64% true shooting with 2 steals per game. And Wemby is averaging 25, 12, and 3 with 5 stocks, being the best defender on the planet on 60% true shooting. He has had more struggles over these last 3 games than anybody else has, although he had like the most impressive, I would say, immediate start to the year. Since then, we've seen people throw the strategy you would expect them to throw at Wemby, which is a shit ton of double teams, guarding him with wings, some just like lower center of gravity, super pesky guys who can get up in his airspace, bother his handle a little bit more, and they're just making him see multiple bodies over and over again. He has to get better there. I think he's got to improve as a passer, and I think he's got to get even better playing through physicality now. But also, he's just got to find other routes to offense where you're not just letting them consistently send 2 bodies at him operating from the elbow, from the high post. Like, have him do more screening, have him get to more threes if that's setting an off-ball screen for him, if it's him popping. Like, they just have to put him in more positions where he doesn't have to play through that traffic over and over again. But still, we talked a lot about the leap that he has taken as an inside the arc scorer. It's so impressive. And now they just got to find a little bit more of that 3-point volume again, ironically, and also just have teammates create some more shots for him. But it's ridiculous. I mean, the production, the level, the efficiency, and the impact of all these guys are not just putting up these crazy gaudy numbers. Like, they're driving their teams to a whole lot of wins early in the year. Obviously, with Shai and Jokic, you expect that, but like Giannis has the Bucks at 6-3. The Lakers are 4-1 when Luka plays. The Spurs are 6-2 when Wemby plays. They're the second best defense in basketball. So if I think about how they can become the best group of top 5 guys ever, it probably comes down to Wemby and what level he gets to this year and how much does he figure out some of these difficult coverages that he's seeing, because he's the guy who has the potential to put them over the top, where it's like, okay, coming into this year, I thought Jokic is at a top 10 peak ever. Giannis and Shai are at top 20 peaks ever. Wemby was the guy who, like, immediately right off the bat, you're like, okay, he could be the best of any of these guys this year. And he hasn't looked like that these last 3 games. So we'll see how much he can adjust and improve, because we always know that the upside is limitless with him. And then the other guy who I guess you would have viewed as like less of a certainty coming into this year was Luka, just because he was coming off a down year. But I mean, it seems like we're going to have a full-on Luka bounce back. And the reason I say that is not just because, oh, these are crazy numbers through 5 games. Specifically, it's the fact that he is doing it with such dominant inside the arc scoring. He isn't even shooting well from 3. He's shooting like 31% from 3, but he's shooting in the high 60s inside the arc. He's getting to the line like 14 times a game. And it's not that he's getting all the way to the rim back at like peak Luka levels from a few years ago, but he is absolutely back to peak Luka inside the arc, short range, mid-range shot making, which is every bit as crucial. So that's been really great to see from him. And what I'll say is, I think we're going to see the best first team All-NBA ever this year. I think if all these guys stay healthy, Now, part of that is kind of a cheat because previous years, you would have two centers. They were both top 5 guys. They couldn't both put them on the team. Now we've abandoned that. There's no positional requirements. That's the level of talent that we're looking at. That's the level of production. And all these guys in their own ways, feels like they could have career seasons. Luka surging back. Wemby, obviously, it's just going to be a continued upward trajectory from him, but he's clearly better than last year by a fair bit. Shai replicating everything that he did last year to start this year, doing it without J-Dub on the court, just his ridiculous efficiency and ability to protect the ball and carry this offense. Jokic is coming off of a career season, and once he fully plays his way into shape and gets that scoring aggression back, he's got every tool to be the best that he's ever been. And Giannis, clearly the best offensively he's ever been. Just ridiculous stuff that he's doing on that side of the ball. So I'm going to hold out for now and say I can't give them that title yet, but they clearly have the potential to do that.
I think there's Jokic and Luka are both two of the greatest, I would say, top 5 scorers and playmakers of all time. SGA is just flat out one of the best scorers I've ever seen.
You're saying
Giannis,
that in terms
one of the most unstoppable physical forces.
Combo?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking to say you weren't saying individually top 5 scorer and top 5 playmaker for both of them.
And then, Wemby's just a freak of nature like we've never seen before. I think it's not only do I think it's possible, I think it's what's going to happen. I just think it's where we are. They're guys like we've never seen before, man. We're spoiled, dude. You look at even the guys on the fringes, man. If it's an Ant or if it's, whoever's hanging outside there, man. I feel like you could almost make a substitute, and this would still be an interesting question.
I'm with you. I think end of the year, we will probably be saying, yes, this is the best top 5 we've ever seen. But like I said, I think that comes down to just how dominant Wemby can be. And I'm a big time Wemby optimist. I have said that I think he's going to be the GOAT. So you can't really be more optimistic than that. It's been incredibly fun what we're seeing from these guys at the top, though, Logan. And one of those guys who we're mentioning, Shai, once again has the Oklahoma City Thunder at the top of the standings with a 9-1 record. And we both picked them to win the title coming into the year, of course. But coming off of their championship season last year, Logan, do you feel like they're bigger favorites now? And we're only 10 games into the season, but who would you take to win it all, OKC or the field?
I would take OKC to win the championship over everybody else. And like you mentioned, 9-1, number 1 in defensive rating, number 1 in net rating. J-Dub has yet to play this season. I know you've mentioned this stat a bunch on this show, but they are now 13-1 without J-Dub since the beginning of 2025. That is remarkable because of how great J-Dub is, the way this team is able.
I think they're 13-1 when Shai plays without J-Dub. I think they're 17-1 without him overall, which is insane.
It's ridiculous. And not to beat a dead horse with OKC, but it's I think about it, and this defense is just the most bankable thing that I'm most confident in with any NBA team on the planet. If we're looking at one side of the basketball, there's just nobody I'm more confident in replicating their success game to game than this Oklahoma City defense. They have such a great identity. They have so much versatility. They have defensive guys with different skill sets that they can kind of put on anyone. And they just have so many of them. So it's they can't get overwhelmed. It's not we have 4 different guys who can kill you, so you're not going to be able to match up with all of them. Yeah, they do. And because of that, they just wreak so much havoc. And not only are they the best defense, one of the best defenses I've ever seen, they are also one of the best defenses in NBA history at turning defense into offense. Mm-hmm. And that's just the thing I'm most confident in with any other team in the NBA. I can't remember the number exactly, and the Wizards aren't good. Bro, I think they beat the Wizards 30-3 in points off turnovers the last game they played in, man. It was one of the most gaudy margins I've ever seen from a team. And they're so great on that side of the ball. They are without one of the best defenders on this team. And I feel like they're even better than last year. I feel like Chet Holmgren has taken a leap. SGA is still one of the best players on the planet. AJ Mitchell has emerged as a really solid contributor in this lineup. And again, J-Dub's not even back. I love OKC. they just play such a solid brand of basketball. The defense is going to be there every single game. They are so athletic. You're not going to out-physical this team. Yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but there's just nobody I have more confidence in than OKC. If I had to pick somebody second, it's definitely Denver, but I don't know if you feel this way, Carson. I have OKC kind of in a tier of their own the way I did last year.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that they were a clear, strong favorite coming into the year. That margin to me has grown. Like, specifically, it's AJ Mitchell and the fact that there were very, very few areas that this team was in need of improvement. But one of the few that we talked about was the emergence of a third ball handler potentially. And AJ Mitchell has not just been like a solid option there. He's been legitimately fantastic. I mean, this is a 17-4-4 guy for you on very solid efficiency and somebody who is so effective as a driver and crafty as hell and a great below the rim finisher and changes pace really well. Phenomenal from floater range. And he's a good passer and he's a good jump shooter. And he plays well off ball, and he's a good cutter, and he's good in transition, and he competes defensively. It's just like, wow, man, what a find, what a development. This guy was the 38th pick a year ago, showed some promise last year, but then got hurt and didn't come back until late in the playoffs, until the finals. And so he wasn't in the playoff rotation for them. And now not only has he emerged as like a rotation guy, he's like, I would argue, one of the best role players in basketball. And I don't even know if you can call him a role player. Like, he is a legitimate creator, a very legitimate creator, and clearly a 6th man of the year frontrunner at this point. And if you just think about what it takes for OKC to lose a game, Logan, they finally lost one. They started 8-0 and then they lost to Portland. And in that game, J-Dub was out, Chet was out, Caruso was out, Dort was out. You had a bad Shai shooting game. And they lost by 2 on the road to a good Portland team that specifically is a kick-ass defensive team, young, energetic, plays super hard every night. Like, so many things have to go wrong for the Thunder to lose a single basketball game. It just speaks to how big the gap between them and everybody else really is. I mean, they're 9-1 with a plus 13.6 net rating, and that's with J-Dub not playing at all. And not just
shooting
that,
like shit too, right?
It's gotten better, but overall on the year, they're still 23rd in three-point percentage. They started 5-0, shooting 28% from three, dude. And then on top of that, Chet, who I do think absolutely looks better than last year, and that's another swing factor for this team coming into the season, is how consistent could he be offensively? How aggressive could he be? He's now trying to find his rhythm again after he's been banged up, but got out to such an impressive start to the year. Different level of three-point volume and confidence and efficiency there, and just all around great start to the year offensively. Now he's missed some time, and still they just keep chugging along and dominating everybody. The standard they have set and the floor is so crazy high. If you put Shai out there with a bunch of dudes who are at least going to be very good defensively, even if they're missing J-Dub and Chet, I feel confident in that formula because Shai is going to be so excellent in the possession game offensively, and he is going to be able to get them to a good shot pretty much every time down with the ball in his hands. And then when you have an AJ Mitchell creating off the bench, that just gives you even more of a semblance of that formula. Because another thing that AJ does really well is protect the basketball. He's a Shai disciple in that way. You trust the couple creators you have so much. And then defensively, yeah, you're going to dominate in terms of creating turnovers. And they're also just ridiculously good at getting stops. I mean, they're a one-of-a-kind defense. If you don't have them among your top handful of defenses in NBA history, I just think you're a little bit slow to the draw there, man. Right now, they're number one in relative defensive rating in NBA history. Now, of course, sorry, that's modern history. It doesn't go back to the Bill Russell Celtics. They would be number one and number two and number three and number four and number five because they're just unparalleled defensively. We are still so early in the season, 10 games in, that you expect more outliers on both sides of the spectrum, but they were a historic defense last year. They're going to be historic defense this year. And when you have a historically great offensive player like Shai, and when a couple of your big question marks, if you could call them that, like what version of Chet are we going to get? Well, he looks better. Do we have a third ball handler? AJ Mitchell has been an amazing answer to that question. Like, there's just nothing that could make me more confident about the Thunder right now other than them just shooting the ball better, which is going to happen, and J-Dub getting back, which is going to happen. And he could even be better this year, right? It felt like he figured some stuff out later in the playoffs last year in terms of his consistent downhill aggression and force. So they're lapping the field to me, man. I think we're looking at an all-time juggernaut, and I think we're looking at a team that could win 70 games and dominate the playoffs in a way that they didn't last year. Like, one of the incredible things about OKC is they won the title last year being an average half-court offense in the playoffs. Like, nobody does that, but they created so much margin in so many other ways that they could. And now I think all of those areas in which they create crazy margin are just as crazy, and they have more half-court offensive skill, and they're going to be better there.
OKC Glazers unite.
Dude, I mean, how can you not? How can you not? They walk into a game, it doesn't matter how many guys are missing, if they have Shai and one other ball handler, and that's it, dude, because there's never going to be a personnel group they have that isn't sick defensively. I'm like, yeah, I expect them to win the game pretty much, unless I guess they're playing an elite team. But if it's full strength to full strength, it's just no question that I'm taking them over everybody. So I've said, like, I think they're the heaviest title favorite since the peak Warriors, since the 2017, 2018 Warriors. And they're not that heavy favorite. They're not the 2017 Warriors, but I think they're clearly the best thing that we've seen since then. And this is the progression from where they were last year, which was a historically dominant regular season team, but a young team that still had to work out some things on the margins to be like a truly all-time juggernaut. And that's what I'm clearly seeing the potential for this year. And they're just going to keep getting better, Logan, because they're still so young and they have every draft pick in the world. It's hard not to glaze the Thunder when you talk about them if you're just being objective about what you're seeing. That being said, Logan, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on around the NBA that isn't maybe as inevitably great as the Thunder every time they set foot on the court. So I just want to ask, which team around the league are you finding the most intriguing right now? Who are you just fascinated by?
I mean, for me, I think it's got to be the Chicago Bulls and what they've been able to pull off to start this season. Like, the fact that it just makes no sense, man. It's kind of reminding me of like the Seahawks this year and what they've been able to do, or the Indianapolis Colts. Like, and the reason I say that is just like, the NFL, there's always a team or two or three, right? That people didn't have expectations for them preseason and they just shocked the world. It's way more rare in the NBA. And especially when I just don't believe in so many of the players on the Chicago Bulls. The first guy I got to tip my cap to is Josh Giddey. And I kind of wonder if we just got to have a conversation about him and if he's just gotten a lot better, Carson. Like, I think he's, I don't know if he's like one of these building block guys that I want, over anybody else. But what we've seen from him, especially shooting the basketball and touch-wise, is super impressive. I mean, just from last year, he's improved his points per game by 8. He's up to 9 rebounds and 9 assists per game this season. And on the year, he's given you basically 22, 10, and 9.5 on almost 60% true shooting, over 40% from deep. He is baffling to me in how he's been able to do this. He's shooting 38% from deep since joining Chicago. Again, over 40% from deep this year. And another big thing about his game is how he's getting to the line more often. He's basically doubled his free throw attempts per game. Also, the fact that they're missing Kobe White, like, that is huge to me. The fact that Vucevic is shooting the hell out of the ball. I've been out on Vuce for so long. The fact that Buzelis and Dosunmu are so great. Like, I don't know, Carson. I've liked some of these individual players, but it's like when you look at this talent on paper, it just doesn't make sense that the Bulls have been this great to start the year. They're 6-2 right now, and they look like they are in prime position to make the playoffs in the East. We predicted they'd be in the play-in. I know we talked about Chicago last episode. You kind of voiced some of your skepticism about this team. Are you moved? Are you a believer? Are you intrigued? Like, how are you feeling about Chicago, man? I will say, I think I have been legitimately moved by Josh Giddey and how he's been playing. I think that I'm back more in on Dosunmu. He is a great role player. We've both been on Buzelis. How are you feeling about the Bulls, man? I think they are one of the most fascinating teams in the league this season.
They've definitely been really interesting. I'm not as moved as you are. There's a lot of optimism there from you. Look, I went on a rant last show that we talked about the Bulls. I said it's the fakest thing ever. I said we're going to look up after this upcoming slate they have, and they're going to be 5-6. And I basically shit on all their early season hopes. Now they're already better than that. They're 6-2. So Bulls fans, feel free to get mad at me. I'm not fully moved, though. Here's the thing. When they started out 4-0, I still strongly believe a ton of that was due to three-point shooting luck. The fact that their opponents were shooting 26% from three. They were shooting like 29% on wide open threes. I mean, just by far the best shooting luck in basketball. And that had them top 5 in defensive rating. Since then, that stuff has averaged out. This team is 26th in defensive rating over their last 4 games. I believe they're a bad defense, and I have totally held firm on that. They just don't have the personnel to be anything other than a bad defense. Offensively, I do think they look pretty good. Now, they're 13th in offensive rating. I think they can totally sustain that if Josh Giddey keeps doing what he's doing. And that has been the most significant part of this season to me. Vooch is playing really well. I don't think that Vooch has changed who he is as a player, though, in his 30s. Like, I think there's some shooting luck that is definitely bound to come back to earth with him. He's been impressive, but Giddey is the guy who looks like a different player right now. I've been hard on Josh Giddey. I've been a critic of Josh Giddey's. I have said basically he is not a guy who I would ever want to significantly invest in for my franchise just because he has certain limitations as a player that make me out on anybody who has all of those overlapping limitations. Defensively being a negative athlete and a negative defender overall who can get brought into action and targeted. And then offensively, the fact that, yes, he's this very gifted passer, but he's always been super limited as a scorer, limited by his athleticism when it comes to finishing around the basket and paint scoring, and then obviously limited by his major issues as a jump shooter. He has just clearly improved as a scorer of the basketball. And that's the most significant thing he could do, because when he improves as a scorer, he improves as a playmaker, because now it's not just, oh, I can make all these reads. I can make these point guard reads and get these quote unquote Rondo assists, or I'm a good passer in transition, which he always has been. I'm actually somebody who can kind of carve up a defense. I'm somebody who can generate a lot of paint touches and threaten them as a scorer, and therefore create really good looks for my teammates. Like, that's what Giddey is doing right now. This is legitimate offensive stuff that we're seeing from him as a creator. Do I think he's going to keep averaging a 22-point near triple-double? No, I don't think that. But I do think he's clearly the best he's ever been. And I think a lot of people look at the shooting because that's always been like such a big red flag for him. And he is shooting better, and that matters for sure. And he was shooting better down the stretch last year as well. Now, I'm not convinced that's going to stick in terms of the percentages, right? Is he going to be a 40% three-point shooter or even a 38% three-point shooter? I need to see a bigger sample there still. But what I will say is, regardless of the percentage right now, he's clearly more confident in it, which is more significant to me when you're 10 games into a season, right? The percentages are going to fluctuate. Some of the percentages are going to be fake, but the shot diet, the volume, that stuff is more indicative of long-term shooting to me. And that's where it's like, yeah, if you're giving him a little bit of airspace, he's pulling these shots that he wasn't before in transition, off the dribble. Like, he just is more comfortable with the three ball and he's shooting it better. So that's significant. But I think the biggest difference has just been his ability to like really get into the teeth of the defense and actually threaten them as a paint scorer, because of what that opens up for his teammates. Again, just as much of what it does for him, but he's gone from 7 paint points per game last year to 12 paint points per game this year. He's doubling his free throw attempts, as you mentioned. Like, it's just the first time I've ever really felt like, yeah, this is an actual 6'8" big ball handler who can pressure a defense like this and bend them his direction. Giddey's never been that guy. He's always been the pass first sort of point guard, which, like, yeah, it's cool when you can make those passes at his height, but it's not actually that impactful for team offense. Now he's really impacting team offense. So I am probably not as fully bought in as other people, because I am coming from this place of being a Giddey skeptic, and it has only been
can I ask
10
you?
games, yeah, or 8 games.
Yeah, I just want to ask. I mean, I was skeptical like you of Giddey because some of the struggles that we saw from him in Oklahoma City. I kind of think, I don't kind of think, I just think that the Giddey Caruso trade now in hindsight was just extremely mutually beneficial for both parties. But I think not only both teams, the Bulls and the Thunder, but also for Josh Giddey individually. You know, I think we can see this sometimes kind of with, I'm going to use a guy like Jonathan Kuminga. And I think Kuminga is slowly figuring it out this season. But like, you know, you wonder if his development on a star kind of trajectory would have been better if he had the ball in his hands more and could just have the freedom to kind of make mistakes and run an offense. I think Giddey, his play type specifically, was really necessary to be able to just run an offense and have a lot more reps as the lead guy, where in Oklahoma City, he was never going to have that kind of benefit. I just think it has done wonders for him in just getting those practice reps in and making him better. Like, I just think this situation has really benefited his growth. And are you not more optimistic now with how we've seen that improvement in touch and his perimeter shot that he could continue doing this long term? Like, I'm just legitimately moved by Giddey. Like, I think there's a high chance that he is just a transformed in winning offensive player.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I am moved. I guess I'm saying I am not the most bought in, but that's coming from a place of being a previous skeptic. But I'm absolutely moved. He looks like a different player. And just quickly on the point that you made about the fit in OKC and how this is just clearly a better situation for him, I agree in part, in the sense that, like, when you get to a playoff series and it's like, okay, we have Shai, we have our great ball handler who's quite ball dominant. So a guy like Giddey is going to go spend a lot of his time in the corner. Well, that's when he was destructive to a team offense, especially when he was shooting that poorly and you weren't even getting like the benefits of his playmaking at his size. However, Giddey was also a guy who I wouldn't have wanted to put the ball in his hands for extended stretches because he was so limited as a half-court scorer, as a pick-and-roll scorer, because of the finishing and because of the major three-point shooting issues. The fact that you could go under screens, he couldn't punish you for that. Like, that stuff has gotten way better, and maybe that is reps on ball. Sure, I also just think that's skill development, and he even looks more athletic there right now, dude. Like, he's more aggressive just in every way as a downhill basketball player. He has been really impressive to me this year in a way that he's never been before. And transition is still part of that, and the Bulls play pretty fast, but the Bulls were playing fast last year. And yes, he had his hot stretch at the end of the year, but I was one who said, hey, all right, March, April basketball, fake stuff happens. I'm not buying it. Now I'm definitely buying it more. That being said, I'm not ready to stamp the Bulls as some playoff team just because I think they're a pretty good offense and they're a bad defense. And I think that averages out to them just being a mediocre team. That's still where I'm at with Chicago. I mean, they're better than I thought they were going to be before the year. Giddey has been legitimately impressive, but
even
it's
without
not the
Kobe White
most standout. Yeah, I don't know how much Kobe White actually impacts winning for this team, especially when Giddey is stepping up with these sort of offensive contributions.
I don't know,
Kobe
man.
White
Kobe
makes
is
their
damn
defense even
skilled.
worse.
I think bringing Kobe off the bench to serve some buckets, though, will make your offense. I think this is going to be an electric offense, man.
They're fun for sure. They're fun. But again, I don't know that Kobe is somebody on balance. Yes, the offense, the shot making can be dynamic, but I think this is a team that needs to prioritize defensive personnel where they can. The last dude who I think we should shout out here is Tre Jones, man. Tre Jones has been good. I mean, he's been effective as a driver. He's been good as a playmaker. He has been another ball handler who's brought some juice to this offense. And, you know, I love Buzelis. I've been in on Buzelis. He was my most improved player pick. But the Giddey redemption arc, I did not see coming, and it's happening right now. So props to Chicago for that. My most interesting team is another team out east, and I'm much more fascinated by their process, I would say, than the Bulls. The Bulls have been a surprise hot starter to the year, but the Miami Heat are just playing the most unique brand of basketball in the NBA right now. So I have to go with them, especially because it's such a complete transformation in offensive identity from what they were doing last year to this really radical place now. We talked a little bit about Memphis's offense last year that they were running before Ja kind of forced them back to their old ways. That was a radical approach in terms of going away from pick and roll. Miami is now running about half as many pick and rolls as that Memphis team was. And they're running half as many pick and rolls as the team that runs the second fewest pick and rolls in basketball this year. Like, they're totally on an island in terms of their approach to offense. They've pushed this way farther than we've seen anybody else do. In recent NBA history, they're also playing so fast when last year they were a team that played so slow. They've gone from 28th in pace to first in pace. So they're like this fascinating combination of last year's Grizzlies principles and then also like Pacers basketball. And there's some overlap there where like you push pace like crazy. You want to force a cross match where you can, and then you take advantage by letting whoever cook, whoever has the matchup that you like. That's a very Pacers thing to do. It was also a Grizzlies thing to do last year before they abandoned it. But there's just a selflessness here. And like the level of heads up, hit ahead passing that we're seeing of go, 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 it does remind me of Indiana, and it's working. Like they're an above average offense without Tyler Hero. And if you were going to look at this Miami team coming into this year, you would have said, I thought they could be solid. I actually liked them, I think, more than most, but I certainly didn't see them playing this way. And I would have worried about them not having a pick and roll creator like Tyler Hero. And yet they've been able to work around his absence in a really fun, interesting way. And the guy who deserves the most credit for that, dude, Jaime Jaquez, has been so impressive. I think he needs to be on most improved player watch. And like this to me has been an under the radar leap compared to some of these other ones that get talked about more. I think that he needs to be firmly in the six man of the year conversation. Him and AJ Mitchell, they're pretty much butting heads for both of those awards simultaneously right now, at least in the Carson Brever book. But he is so important because this system is predicated upon certain guys being able to win one-on-one as a driver, right? Or for Memphis, it was like Triple J as a mismatch attacker. You have to have someone who is able to put things into motion with the drive and kick game, with getting downhill. And Jaquez has been that guy. I mean, he's top of the league just about in assists off of drives. He's very high up in drives. I don't have the exact numbers, but when I looked recently, I mean, he was top 5 in restricted area makes per game. His finishing has been phenomenal. And as they look to play with pace, he is such a great transition scorer. He's just 6'7" wing, changes pace well, has the physicality, has all the craft downhill as a driver. I've been so impressed. The guy is, again, a wing who's shooting almost 60% from the field right now, and he's averaging 5 assists per game. So he's like most valuable to them if I were to give somebody the award on the roster, just in terms of how well he fits and how much of an improvement he's made. But then the adjustment we've seen from like a Bam Adebayo, who has now turned into this volume 3-point shooter, making 34% of his threes on 6 attempts a game, and has become mostly a spot up guy. And he's another one of these closeout attacking, drive and kick game kind of guys. Like, it's just a fascinating evolution all around. And they've got a lot of guys who are playing well. Wiggins, Norman Powell, Davion Mitchell, Pella Larson coming in and starting has been good. Simone Fontecchio, Italian legend, has been shooting the shit out of the ball. Like, just a lot of guys who are bought in, who can do multiple things for you, who can shoot, who can put the ball on the floor. And it's exactly what this system requires of all of them. And when you don't have a hero on the floor, and when you have Eric Spoelstra and Bam in this defensive identity, they're a top 5 defense right now. So I like Tyler Hero. He had a really good season last year. I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't know that he makes them better when he comes back. I think he makes them different, but I don't know if the cost benefit analysis there actually favors him having a positive impact when the offense is working as is. And I think the defense is going to take a step back when he returns. I think they'll still be a good defense, but he's a negative on that side of the ball.
He is. I mean, I think you got to give credit to Norm Powell for being the guy that stepped up for him and like his absence. I know he's missed a couple of games now. Jaquez is the star of the show, man. The stuff he's doing, driving the lane, Jaquez looks legitimately explosive. Like, he is getting by guys off the dribble. He is shaking dudes with some change in pace, and he is dunking on guys. Like,
yeah.
I didn't think Jaquez had that in his game. You know, like when he came out as a prospect, I liked him in terms of what he could do as a connective guy. You know, big wing, played a lot in college, had like a solid post game, could do all of the connective stuff. But I never expected him to take guys off the bounce like this and get downhill. Like he looks like a different athlete right now. And I completely agree with you, man. All the conversations that you're throwing him in, I think he belongs. He's the story coming out of Miami, I think, so far this year.
He makes everything they're trying to do possible. But like you said, dude, I mean, he's tearing defenses up. He is just slicing through them as a driver. He's always had bounce. I mean, I think he had like a 40+ inch vertical at the combine, but the sort of like functional speed that you're talking about, getting by people, I think he does a lot of it with shiftiness too, but he looks like a blur out there at times as well. And he's got the physicality, just really, really hard to keep that guy away from the basket, out of the paint. And when he gets there, he's a gifted passer. I mean, he just contributes positively to the game in so many ways. And I have to give him so much credit because I was looking at this Miami team and I was thinking the breakout wing this year, if there's going to be one, is Nikola Jovic. That's a guy who I was higher on. And he's actually had a quiet year. Of all the guys who deserve a shout out for Miami, Jovic has not been one of them. But Jaquez has totally emerged and taken up that offensive usage and done everything that this team needs from him. So I think Miami's good. Like here, I'll say this. If we're talking about these two standout teams, who do I think is more legit when it comes to like being in the playoffs? I like Miami more than Chicago. I'll say that. I don't think either of these teams are going to go out there and win a playoff series, but
you're probably right. I think, and they've also got the best player, I think, out of the both teams, you know? So
they do.
I don't think that's ridiculous. I think both of them will be in the playoffs at the end of the year.
It's definitely possible in this East. But when I think about the hot starters in the East, the Sixers move me more than Chicago for sure. The Heat move me more than Chicago. So I'm not hating. And I get it. Bulls fans, be mad at me because my 5-6 prediction, that's not going to come true.
Blew that 24-point lead against Chicago the other night too.
That was horrific basketball by the Sixers. Oh my God. I mean, Giddey was amazing that game. That was a good comeback win for the Bulls, but also like some of the worst clutch offense I've ever seen from Embiid and Maxey. Terrible shot selection by Maxey, but Embiid, it was like, oh my God, stop giving him the ball. He was that horrible. One of the announcers literally made the Monstars analogy like it looks like they've had their powers taken. And I was like, yeah, dude, it really does. But we're talking about some of these guys, Logan, who have taken leaps. Josh Giddey, Jaime Jaquez. Let's just continue with positivity, shouting people out. I haven't been positive about the Bulls necessarily, but we'll be positive here. Who's a player who's taken one of those maybe a little bit more underrated leaps that you want to give credit to?
Yeah, I've got a few guys written down here. Giddey was one of my shouts. Already gave him some love. So the first guy I'm going to give some love to here, Alex Sarr, has really been impressing me this season for Washington in what he's done. Last season gave you 13 points, 7 boards, 2 assists a night. Is giving you 19 points, 8 boards, 4 assists a night this season. But the efficiency is what's really remarkable. 39% from the field. He's shooting 55% from the field this season. 31% from deep last year. 39% from deep this year. 48.2% true shooting rookie season. 60.6% true shooting this year. And the thing that I've really loved is, one, he just looks in general more confident in his handle, taking guys off the dribble and his shot. He looks a lot more smoother, but he's also diversifying his shot diet too. If you think back to what we talked about a lot last season with Alex Sarr, his reliance on 3-point jumpers, like he was very much just a pick and pop big, settling for threes. That was basically where all of his shots came from. This is a guy now who is taking people off the dribble, who is driving down to the block, and he's playing a lot more physically too. The biggest thing and the biggest improvement that I've seen from Sarr is his footwork. The way he's getting into these spin hooks, these post fades, these gathers. It's a guy that's really been working on his low post and back to the basket game, and it is fully translated. The one thing that I think teams are going to adjust to the rest of this year and what Sarr needs to add to his bag is a left hand, though. Alex Sarr really favors getting over that right shoulder into his right hand. Don't get me wrong. He is legitimately added to his bag. He is no longer just settling for jump shots and is a straight pick and pop big. This guy is added to his game, but I do think long term he's going to have to figure out how he can score more from the left side of the court and on the left side of it. But This is a guy that I was kind of on red alert about last year, Carson, where I was nervous. I was like, this guy doesn't really look like he's got an offensive bone in his body. He doesn't look comfortable out there. This is a guy that has acclimated, that has adjusted, and has legitimately grown as an offensive player. And with what he's already giving you, and he's also improved defensively, that's important too. But with what he was already giving you defensively,
Yeah.
he's a good offensive player now. And I've just been super impressed. He's my first shout out.
Dude, as he should be. By the way, I also had both Giddey and Hawkes down as mentions for this category. We've covered them now. But wow, man. Alex Sarr. You talk about the vision for him as a prospect. It's all coming together so fast. So fast. And like you, I was concerned about what we saw from him offensively last year. And maybe too much just because you knew that he was always going to be a project. I mean, he was far away as a prospect offensively. And so the vision was always, okay, what if he does put together this skill stuff? And what if he does add strength to his frame? And long-term, can he be a good offensive player? You always know that he's going to be a great defensive player. That was obvious as a prospect in last year. And so that was always going to get him onto NBA floors. But could he justify being the number one prospect like I had him coming out of the draft, the number 2 pick in the draft? That was always going to come down to what level could he get to offensively. And last year was not encouraging. It's not to say that there weren't flashes. Like, I really liked his short roll passing last year, and we've just seen more of that this year. But like you said, for a guy who was so reliant on the perimeter game, I just wasn't sure if there were indicators that like that was ever going to be enough for him to actually be a solid offensive player living off of that stuff. Are the shooting indicators good enough? And this year, like, yes, he is shooting the ball a lot better from deep, but what's as significant is he's way less reliant on it. Like, his inside the arc scoring has gotten a lot better. He's gotten better offensively in every way. His finishing has been better. His mid-range shot making has been like incredible. And he's been so decisive getting to this little short turnaround. I mean, it'll often start with a face up and then he'll drive to like 12 feet from the basket, and then he gets to that little turnaround and he puts it over top of you and you can't affect it. And he's just been money on that shot. And overall, his driving game looks so good. He struggled as a driver last year. It's not surprising when you have a gangly young big who isn't strong yet and is trying to put together the handle and all these things. And again, you're just talking about flashes, but overall, I mean, he averaged 0.7 points per drive last year. That's rough. This year, he's over a point per drive, and he's driving way more. And that's where, again, you're talking about more functional ball handling now, more strength and ability to play through contact, better finishing, better touch in the paint, all of that. And then the 3-ball has been better, and the passing is legitimately good. I mentioned specifically his ability to make these short roll reads is so impressive, and he's rolling more now. That's another thing. Like, when you're popping every time, not only do you have to be a good 3-point shooter to make that work, the only outcome is going to be a pick and pop 3 for you. Whereas if you roll and you're getting a paint touch, well, you have an opportunity to finish. You have an opportunity maybe to drop it off to somebody in the dunker spot, depending on the spacing, to find a shooter in the corner, to find a shooter on the wing, whatever. There's just, to me, more positive outcomes if you are a good roller who can also make decisions as a passer than if you're just popping every time. And you need that balance anyway, so you're not predictable as a roller. And he's just doing all of that stuff. It's like a total dramatic improvement from last year. And he looks like he's very much justifying the fact that we both had him as the number 1 prospect in the class. And I can't like take credit because after last year, I was saying I would definitely have Buzelis over him. If we were to do a redraft, I would have Klingon over him. And then he would be in that next group. And now I'm just thinking like I didn't give enough credit to the development process. But then again, I don't know if you reasonably could have said, yeah, we should have seen this coming. Because like there were a few really good games offensively. There were also a lot of really bad games offensively from Sarr. And now he's been the most impressive year 2 guy. And not just that, when I compare him to a guy like Klingon, if we're talking about these 2 second-year bigs, what Klingon has always had is bankable, elite floor setting traits, rim protection, offensive rebounding, screening, right? All this stuff that is predicated upon being 7'2", 280 and knowing how to use it. But there's also always been a lower ceiling there because he doesn't have the sort of offensive skill or versatility as a player you would need to have that like star upside. He's really impactful. I really like Klingon. It's not a knock on him. I'm just saying, when you have a guy like Sar, who's an elite defensive talent, a great rim protector with real mobility and switchability for his size, who then also can do all these different things offensively. Again, it's just a different level of ceiling and upside. And 19, 8, and 4 on 61% true shooting. I know that we're only 9 games into the year for the Wizards. If you told me Alex Sar was doing that by year 5, I would have said, let's fucking go, man. I would have said the vision materialized, it hit. Year 2, after last year, I'm blown away. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see this from Sar, because we were talking about how things are bleak for the Wizards. And it's like, you've been in the shit for this long, and do you have the guy? And I thought Sar had the best potential to be that guy, but I had big questions about his offensive game, and I just feel so much more encouraged. And then also, Keyshawn George has been impressive, right? He's a guy who can create space for himself off the dribble, is a pretty dynamic pull-up shooter, a good playmaker, like a nice kind of do-it-all wing who can handle. So those two guys have me feeling better about the Wizards' future, even though they're 1-8 to start this year. That's fine. They're going to suck this year. All that matters is this prospect pool and how they develop. And it's been encouraging returns from those two, but especially Sar, like big time shout out. I've got another shout out for a young big man though, Logan, unless there's anything else you want to say about Sar.
No, shout out George too. He was written down for me as well. He's been impressive.
He has. I mean, especially had a couple heaters coming out the gate, and he's been inconsistent, but like as to be expected. He's clearly a talented young player. The other big who I want to shout out is Jalen Duren. I've been very impressed by him. 19, 11, and 2 on 71% true shooting. And he's had a few like bankable traits of his own. He's an elite lob threat. He's got to lead the league in alley-oop finishes this year. I don't know. I don't have that stat in front of me, but Cade and him, it feels like they connect 3 times a game like that. He's a dominant offensive rebounder. He's always been that. He's a pretty good passing big. I wish that they used him as like a bit of a passing hub more, but he's added to his game this year. He's showing a little bit more of a driving game. He's got really good short range touch, which he has had, but now he's doing it a little bit more on the move, off the bounce, and he's so strong. I mean, he's just jacked as hell and huge, and he's coordinated. Like, we're seeing legitimately fluid spin moves into like a floater in the lane, and it's like, that's a new element to his game. And he's playing the best defense of his career, which has always been a significant thing with Duren, where he's got the physical measurables, but he's been the smartest, the most effective as a rim protector that we've seen him. He's also like phenomenal free throw touch, really good free throw touch, and a really good free throw rate guy with his physical imposition. Doing a lot in 27 minutes a game right now. And he's just a really good young big, and he's a really good complement to Cade. Having that sort of great play finisher, great offensive rebounder who can clean up stuff on the interior. Now that he's also doing some of these additional complementary things on top of that, I really like what we're seeing from Duren.
I mean, Duren was one of the big reasons why I said on one of our earlier shows that the Pistons were one of the teams I expected to host a playoff series. They've been on a really good run recently, and I just think that
number 1 in the East right now.
It was such a great pick for the Pistons, and how he complimented Cade and his age and this timeline, and his development this year has been really encouraging, because it felt like he's been a little bit of, stagnant over the past few seasons, but he has added to his game, and I think he's going to be a stud for them long term. One of the guys I was more excited to shout out a couple of games ago was Keontae George, and what he was doing getting downhill to the free throw line. He's come back down to earth a little bit, but I've been impressed a little bit with his driving game this year, and just he's been a little bit more efficient. I think his life has gotten a little bit harder with some of the injuries. The last 2 guys I had written down for this aren't young, but I do want to give them credit for playing their roles and looking better than I expected. Russell Westbrook for the Kings, I think, is an actual addition and just a good player. I really like Russ on the Kings. I find him very easy to root for with this squad. It's weird, and the age of this team is just so funny. The fact that they've got DeRozan, Levine, Sabonis, and Russ in the big 2025. It's a weird group, but Russ fires me up. I find myself cheering on Russ. He's a very easy guy to cheer for with the intensity and the passion that he brings. He fits the Kings to me, man. He fits the Kings really well. I hope that they keep him around. And then the other guy, his numbers aren't really going to blow you away, but when I watch him play, I've been thoroughly impressed this season. That's Kyle Kuzma. I think Kuzma has really committed to playing his role and doing the little role player stuff this season well. What I've seen him do defensively in the post, on the perimeter, what he's doing on the glass. He's always going to be kind of clunky, I think, offensively and a little funky on that end, but his commitment to doing his job off the bench and playing hard and really committing defensively has impressed me this season. But I think the biggest surprise is Sarr, though, man. He would be my big pick.
Yeah.
Just with the expectations coming into this year, I was worried that he might just be a dud offensively, and he put in some work this offseason. But those are my guys, man. I've been blown away by all those guys to start this year.
Blown away by Kuz. Blown away.
I thought Kuzma just sucked, bro. I thought Kuzma was an actual zero on this bat. Bobby Portis still does suck, but I thought him and Bobby Portis were going to be negatives for this team.
Kuz can defend for sure. He's always been able to do that when he buys in. And as long as he stays away from the Giannis minutes, he's good with me. And still, for the most part, they have not played him and Giannis together, which is a good thing. I just think his shooting in the Giannis lineups is so destructive, but it's not like he's an incompetent basketball player. You just got to have him in the right role. And I think that they have found that for him so far. So, yeah, I mean, he's shooting 66% on twos. He's been good inside the arc. He just cannot shoot the basketball. But I think we've given some good shout outs. I mean, I'm not going to beat the same drum with AJ Mitchell, these guys that we've already talked about a lot, Ryan Rollins. I mean, that's the buck who clearly has really made the leap, who deserves praise. But this is the underrated leap slogan, and I'm glad that we got to give some more props today. We're sticking with the vibe of just basketball curiosity, Logan, just exploring this beautiful league that we have. So before we sign off, we've talked about the most interesting team. We've talked about some of these very interesting leaps that we've seen. Let's go league wide. What is the most interesting trend that you have seen this year on that level? Things that you're noticing around the NBA?
I mean, I think this is just kind of a general trend that's been happening over the past few seasons. So maybe this is kind of lukewarm, but just like this shift to athleticism, but moreover, like guys that can just do a little bit of everything, man. I think it's so much more important now to have a little bit of everything in your toolkit than being like a specialist. You know, I don't know. I think about the league like 10 years ago, and there are guys that just grab rebounds or guys that are just straight up shooters. There's not very many one-dimensional players that find their way onto basketball courts now. I just think it's so much more important. Like, you know, we're talking about a guy like Jaquez, who I liked coming out of the draft, and you kind of just see his value like nowadays, where it's like, this is a 6'6" guy that can play inside, that can play outside, that can handle a little bit, that can play make a little bit, that can rebound, that can defend, that can score at all three levels. And you kind of look up and you're like, wow, that's a really valuable skill set. And I just think you're kind of seeing it more on display, these guys who are complete. The guys that check all of your boxes across the board, like that are the complete packages, man, that have the size, that have the ability, that can do a little bit of everything, man. I think those guys are just the most valuable kind of archetypes in basketball, man. I'm kind of coming around to that. Guys who can, it's more important to be well-rounded than it is to have a specialty when you also have a significant liability, man. Like, it's important that you can do a little bit of everything and complement other guys on the court and also make them better. And I think that's just more important. That kind of versatility and malleability is more important in today's game than ever before.
No question. That was a big theme of last year. We talked about that a lot, but the importance of depth, quality role players. Like you said, it's not a question of, okay, can you defend one position and knock down a standstill three when we talk about a 3-and-D guy? Obviously, defensive versatility is at a premium. It's a switching league. Can you switch on to smaller guards? Can you switch on to bigger guys? But also, and even more so, I would say, it's the offensive versatility that is now required of, can you make reads? Can you play off the catch, not just as a shooter, but attacking closeouts and get in the lane? And like, yeah, you have to do multiple things to stay on the floor in today's NBA. It's not just about expanding your shooting range beyond the arc, which is, I think, the biggest change, right, that people have talked about so much, but there's so much more that goes into that, understanding how to play now with all of that additional space, understanding how to play from beyond the three-point line is not just about knocking down three-point shots, because if that's all you can do, well, then you're still a one-dimensional player and teams will close out super hard. And if you can't beat them off the dribble, well, then that's a problem for your offense. Now you're stagnating things. So it's just incredible, the all-around skill development that we've seen, and that's just constantly getting better. I'll say specifically this year, though, I think we've seen some more niche things that even compared to last year do stand out to me. I don't think it's a coincidence that we saw two teams go deep in the playoffs, all the way to the finals last year, by dominating the transition margin and by bringing a shit ton of ball pressure when you're talking about the Thunder and the Pacers. And now we're seeing teams try to replicate those things. Those were two teams that played with a ton of pace of their own. They got out in transition a ton, and they were able to do that in part by forcing turnovers with ball pressure, especially OKC, obviously, are the best that we've seen at that, arguably in league history, but also by limiting your chances to get out in transition by slowing up that ball handler initially, allowing their own defense to get set by forcing you to maybe turn in the backcourt, right? Maybe flirt with an 8-second backcourt violation. And we're now seeing more pressing league-wide, like a decent bit more than we've ever seen before, which is interesting. We're seeing more pace, the fastest pace of play league-wide since 1989. Those things are interrelated, and yet it's also like we're seeing teams try to slow down the opposing team's pace by bringing more pressing. But overall, the game is being played faster, more in the full court than ever before in recent memory. And we're also seeing more zone, dude. Like, this is another trend that we saw last year where zone started to really come back. I mean, the Heat playing a lot of it, the Cavs playing some, the Sixers, the Thunder, all these teams would kind of mix it in as their looks. You know, have a team like the Rockets, they're running 18 possessions of zone defense a game. I mean, it's just such an interesting way now to play aggressively in gaps, I would say, is the biggest thing that you're seeing from this, where you just have those athletic help defenders who have the speed and the length to recover out to the perimeter as needed, but they're sitting in those driving lanes and they're shrinking the floor a little bit. It's a counter to this sort of modern 5-out spacing, obviously, that we're seeing more everywhere. And it's also just like, offenses are so good, you have to mix coverages. You have to throw different punches more than ever. You have to try to keep them off balance where you can. And I think Ime Udoka is a great coach when it comes to doing that. Spo is like the first guy who comes to mind, but that's just continuing to become more and more common. Another one that we talked about last year, right? Double big lineups coming back a lot. One of the effects of that, which has continued into this year, is offensive rebounding is coming back, Logan. You know, offensive rebounding kind of got phased out of the game for a little bit, right? When you have more stretch bigs than ever before, more 5-out, there's obviously opportunities, right? You have corner crashes and these different things that you can do, but you just have fewer bigs who are stationed around the basket, big, physical, kick-ass, 7-foot, 250-pound kind of guys. And now, as the game has turned more to wings, perimeter athletes, obviously a response to that is bring back the huge guys, because now they can punish some of those smaller groups. And we're seeing that. Offensive rebounding percentage is the highest it's been since 2013. That's significant because the sport was completely different in 2013. And it's not just double bigs. I was thinking about the success of a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner, Logan, who we talked about a little bit, but just on the back of being utterly massive. I mean, he's a really good offensive rebounder. He's a good rim finisher. He's a really good shot blocker. Like, there's always value in that. And when you have more versatile bigs than ever before, like we do, it's easier to play two of them together at once. Another interesting thing, we're seeing the highest free throw rate league-wide since 2011. Again, that's significant because it was a totally different sport. Free throw rate has just gone down, and I think reached a literal all-time low last year. Why? Because the game is being played from beyond the three-point line more than ever before. This year, obviously, we're still seeing a lot of threes, but there's been a little bit of a dip in three-point rate, and the game is being played through the paint so much. Restricted area makes are up by a little bit. Free throw rate is up. And I think that we're just seeing more of like those power drivers, dude. Obviously, Giannis, when you just put 4 shooters around him, he could do unthinkable things around the basket. But we talked about a Jaime Jaquez, a Denny of Dia. Like, there's just a lot of these power,
I think
really
that's
good driving
also
wings right now.
I think that is also interrelated too with the pace and the transition play too,
Yeah,
because that's just going to lead to the speed at which it's played. That generates more touches in the paint, and I think we're just seeing like an optimization, a complete optimization now of offense, where it's like again the two most valuable shots in in basketball: shots at the rim, shots behind the arc. I think more teams are leaning into that and recognizing that value.
totally. But I think that we're seeing a little bit more of a trend in the direction of at the basket now, whereas obviously it's been, well,
There's also
rim
more.
rim attempts have gone up dramatically over the years as 3-point attempts have, but now I think rim attempts are getting a little bit more of that emphasis this year.
Well, I think we're seeing like a counter, like you're talking about the 3-pointers too. Like the counter to that too is all that space in the paint. People just taking advantage of it more. I like where the league's at, man. I've been locked in, bro. The basketball has been so damn good this year, bro.
Dude, it's so awesome and it's so interesting. Like, it's not just that the talent is so good, it's incomprehensible. I made a video just talking about this where it's like the fact that a Giannis exists, a player with his skill set, a Wemby exists, Jokic, the best offensive player ever, and then you've got Shea and Luca, who are both these unique, incredible superstars, all-time great offensive players. We already talked about this with how crazy the top five is. That's unbelievable. The talents are crazy. The depth is so much better, but also like all of the different strategic wrinkles that we're seeing. It just feels like the game is evolving and changing faster than ever before. Of okay, all of a sudden, league wide, everybody's looking and they're like, yeah, we need to bring more ball pressure. We need to pick up higher than ever before. We need to mix in more zone. Like, and not literally everybody is doing all these things, but a lot of
Yeah.
teams are doing a lot of these
Brooklyn Nets
things.
said, let's draft 4 pass first point guards in the first round of the draft.
The Brooklyn Nets said, let's use a basketball philosophy that wouldn't have even made sense in the 1970s. Certainly doesn't make sense in the 2020s. Speaking of guards, though, and what we expect from a modern guard, I saw Steve Jones, shout out to him of the Dunker Spot, tweet out something recently that I think has been on the mind of a lot of NBA people, which was basically, he said, I'm seeing some people say no more small guards. By the way, shout out to our friends over at the State of the League. They frequently say things like kill small guards, get them out of the league. And some people saying there's a lot of teams out there who need point guards right now. And Steve Jones was saying, like, I wonder where that line is. I think that's a really interesting question because this is interrelated with what you were talking about, that like whole philosophy of no weak links, where if you're a small guard, today's NBA, you're getting put into action over and over and over more than ever before, right? A Jalen Brunson, a Darius Garland, really good players, more than offset it with their offensive value overall. But in certain matchups, they are more detrimental to their team's defense than like they ever would have been in any other time in NBA history. So you have that concern. But then, of course, I mean, small guards, a number of them are often still some of the best offensive engines in today's NBA. If it is a Brunson, if it is a Garland, if it is a Trey, all these guys with whom you have to negotiate that trade-off. But if you're not delivering that star offensive value as a small guard, yeah, it's going to be really hard for you to get on the floor. Specifically this year, though, I think we have seen more teams than ever lean into like the not no point guard approach, but more minutes than ever before without a point guard on the floor. And like, for the most part, I've been very interested, and I think it's worked out relatively well for the teams that have tried it. Like, the Rockets have the number 2 offense in basketball right now without a point guard, right? Amen Thompson is not
And
a
I
real
think
point
they
guard.
have
Reed
the
Shepherd is
lowest
not a real point
3-point
guard.
rate of any team.
Yeah, well, they
Highest
are
offensive
super
rebounding
unique.
rate.
Right. That's part of their crazy, unique formula, is just the insane offensive rebounding of it all. But the majority of their playmaking load is on their center. Like, they are finding this super interesting way to work around Van Vliet's injury. And I'm not saying that that's not going to come back to bite them. I worry about their lack of a point guard big picture. Right now, they do have the number 2 offense in basketball without one, though. The Timberwolves have a top 5 offense without a point guard. You know, Mike Conley plays 20 minutes a game, but he's a corpse out there. Like, and they're still producing these great results. The couple teams I mentioned early in the year, I can't include Portland in this because Drew Holiday has been so good, but they don't have a backup point guard. Like, Denny takes on a ton of ball handling responsibilities. They also play like these like 4 or 5 wing lineups a lot, and they've worked pretty well. Toronto is another team that plays a ton of wing lineups. They do have a point guard in IQ, but even as he hasn't played well, you know, Toronto's 5-4 with all of these different big athletic wings attacking in transition, doing a lot with the ball in their hands. It's just so interesting, man. I don't know that I have a big takeaway here about like, oh yes, you do need X amount of point guards, or
We've reached
you can't have small guards.
We've
X
reached
amount.
the
It's just,
demigod era, man.
it feels like that way a lot of times. When you look at just the size and athleticism and skill all coming together, it is crazy. And there's so many unique teams out there right now. This was the most mind-boggling narrative to me last year.
Every team plays the same way.
As I'm like, dude, we're seeing incredible variety. And now I just think that's even more so the case. There are a lot of quirky, very distinct, good basketball teams out there. And this time of the year is also so awesome because like everybody's competing. You know, we don't have the tank stuff going on. Even the 1-8 Wizards, they're trying out there. Like everybody is kind of putting their best foot forward for the most part. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I'm having a ton of fun, man. I love the NBA and I love talking about it with you, Logan. So here we are. Another fascinating season of basketball. Will it be the best ever? Some are saying. Let's hope so. For now, though, we've got football coming up tomorrow, Logan. A 2-episode weekend for Nerd Sesh. Has it been done before? I don't know, but it's being done right now, and we hope that you guys enjoy it along with us. We hope you enjoy the basketball. We hope you enjoy the football, and we hope that you enjoy our analysis. If you do, you know where to find us. All of our full shows are across our YouTube channel, NBA and NFL. Also, you can find our video essays, video breakdowns there. I just did one on Cooper Flagg, 20 minutes going into everything going on with him. How much is the shitty situation in Dallas responsible? Where does he need to be better? Where can they put him in better positions to succeed? He's had a really interesting start to the year. And you can listen to all of our full episodes across all audio platforms. You can also follow us across social, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh to see all of the clips from the show that we post there, graphics from the show when we do lists and rankings, and of course, all of our daily trivia content and some of our TikTok original takes that we put out there. And if you want, you can join our Discord. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.